please. Shabbat Shalom. All right, we're getting ready to start. See a few people here in the chat. Shabbat Shalom, House of Chief Eleazar, my brothers and sisters. Shabbat Shalom, my brother Zakaryah, Simcha, wife of my brother Chief Peniel. Good to see y'all here. All right, let's get ready. Let's rise. We're going to rise and start this off with praises. Then we're going to recite the Constitution of Israel in Exodus 20. Come over here. Giving all honor and praise to the Most High God, who sitteth in the seat of judgment, whose throne is inestimable, the Lord of lords, God of gods, King of kings, the high and lofty one, who inhabiteth eternity, who has no counselor and none to consort with him. He who has reigned from the beginning, before any creature was formed, or any green shoot shot forth, before the foundations of the earth were laid, before the legions of angels first assembled. Yea, he who possessed wisdom ere the waters were parted asunder, or the winds of the firmament ever blew. He alone, the dreaded one, did reign, still reigns, and shall reign over all things forever. From everlasting to everlasting, El Shaddai, the Almighty God, the creator of all life, who made man in his own image, to whom he gave a heart of flesh, and has imparted him with the 5 operations of Elohim: eyes to see, ears to hear, smell, and taste, that he might enjoy the pleasures of eating and drinking, whereby he may obtain strength and healing from the foods and medicines of the earth that he made for him. And feeling also, both to the touch and in the inward parts, to know what was in his heart, whether he would serve Ha Elohim, his maker, or no. And besides these, he endowed him with good sense and reason and speech to interpret the things that are seen and heard, that he might comprehend and articulate his thoughts, becoming fully aware, possessing the power to make sound decisions. And in his abounding loving kindness, he granted him understanding, yea, and knowledge also, that he might have withal to pursue the things that are pleasing to the Lord and depart from evil. He to whom all honor, worship, and praise is due, the omnipotent God, God of the Hebrews, who made the sea and the dry land, the God of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, the God of Israel, the true and living God, the author of love, time, life, and sound, who spake and it was created, for all things are done at the words of his mouth, who breathed life, the one spirit, into our first father Adam, from whom we all are come to the world, which he made for the serving, nurturing, and nourishment of man, his most precious creation, to whom he gave his most righteous law, for righteousness belongeth to him alone, who is just in all things, who keep his covenant and mercy with them that love him, and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations, even to the seed of his beloved friend Abraham, even to us, the children of Israel, Ben Isaac and Maccabim, sons of the ancient Maccabees. For he is our God, the ancient of days, for before the day was, is he. The God of the spirits of all flesh, El Quanah, the jealous God, El Rakum, the merciful God, El Rapah, the God of healing, the one and only true healer, Hagadol, the great, Hagibor, the mighty, Wehanorah, and the terrible, Elohim Zebaoth, the Lord of hosts is his name. He is the King of glory. Blessed be the glorious name of his kingdom forever and ever. For he is good, for his mercy endureth forever. Giving due respect to the chief men, princes, dignitaries, officers, mothers in Israel, brothers and sisters, I stand before you this day, Prince Zakaryah, a title bestowed upon me by the order of Chiefs Eleazar, Ben Lewi, Ben Dodo, a.k.a. Matitya, father of the house of the Maccabees, my teacher and leader, in whose honor I speak and continue the legacy of his name, works, and teachings, in the name of our God, and the holy law given us at the mouth of his prophet Moshe, reinstituted by and in accordance with the protocol set forth by Nasi, head knock of all the Hebrews, teacher, leader, and founder of Ben Isaacin, the first Hebrew Israelite congregation in the United States of America, whither we have been exiled because of our sins and the sins of our fathers, whom our God commissioned to bring his people together to the intent that he might open our eyes and give us ears to hear and a heart to perceive, as it is at this day, so that we may keep his commandments, return to him, and repair the breach. I bid you in the ancient tongue of our fathers, Shabbat Shalom Lechem.
Shabbat Shalom Lekah.
Please remain standing as we recite the Constitution of Israel in Hebrew from Exodus 20. Please repeat after me. וידבר אלוהים
וידבר אלוהים
את קהל הדברים
את כל הדברים
העלה לאמור
העלה לאמור
אנוכי אל שדי אלוהיך
אנוכי אשר אלוהיך
אשר הוצאתיך
אשר הוצאתיך
מארץ מצרים
מארץ מצרים
מבית עבדים
מבית עבדים
לא יהיה לך
לא יהיה לך
אלוהים אחרים
אלוהים אחרים
על פניי
על פניי
לא תעשה לך פסל
לא תעשה לך פסל
וקל תמונה
וקל תמונה
אשר בשמיים ממעל
אשר בשמיים ממעל
ואשר בארץ מתחת
ואשר בארץ מתחת
ואשר במים מתחת לארץ
ואשר במים מתחת לארץ
לא תשתחווה להם
לא תשתחווה להם
ולא תעבדם
ולא תעבדם
כי אנוכי אל שדי אלוהיך
כי אנוכי אשר אלוהיך
אל כהנה
אל כהנה
פוקראון
וקראון
אבות על בנים
אבות הבנים
על שילשים
על שילשים
ועל ריבעים
ועל רבעים
לשונאי
לשונאי
ועושה חסד
ועושה כסף
לאלפים לאוהבי
ואלפים לאהבי
ולשומרי מצוותיי
ושומרי מצוותיי
לא תישא את שם
לא תישא את שם
אל שדי אלוהיך
אל שדי אלוהיך
לשווא
לשווא
כי לא ינקה אל שדי
כי לא ינקה אל שדי
את אשר יישא
את אשר יישא
את שמו לשווא
את שמו לשווא
זכור את יום השבת
זכור את יום השבת
לקודשו
לקודשו
6 ימים תעבוד
6 ימים תעבוד
ועשית כל מלאכתך
ועשית כל מלאכתך
ויום השביעי
ביום השביעי
שבת לאל שדי אלוהיך
שבת לאל שדי אלוהיך
לא תעשה כל מלאכה
לא תעשה כל מלאכה
אתה
אתה
ובנך
ובנך
וביתך
וביתך
עבדך
עבדך
ועמתך
ועמתך
ובהמתך
ובהמתך
וגירך אשר בשעריך
וגירך אשר בשעריך
כי 6 ימים
כי 6 ימים
עשה אל שדי
עשה אל שדי
את השמיים
את השמיים
ואת הארץ
ואת הארץ
את הים
את הים
ואת כל אשר בם
ואת כל אשר בם
וינח ביום השביעי
וינח היום השביעי
על כן ברק אל שדי
על כן ברך אל שדי
את יום השבת
את יום השבת
ויקודשהו
ויקודשהו
כבד את אביך
כבד את אביך
ואת אמך
ואת אמך
למען יאריכון ימיך
למען יאריכון ימיך
על האדמה
על האדמה
אשר אל שדי אלוהיך
אשר אל שדי אלוהיך
נותן לך
נותן לך
לא תרזח
לא תרזח
לא תנאף
לא תנאף
לא תגנוב
לא תגנוב
לא תענה
לא תענה
ורעך את שקר
ורעך את שקר
לא תקמוד
לא תקמוד
בית רעך
בית רעך
לא תקמוד
לא תקמוד
אשת רעך
אשת רעך
ועבדו
ועבדו
ואמתו
ואמתו
ושורו
ושורו
וכמורו
וכמורו
וכל אשר לרעך.
וכל אשר לרעך.
Shavu, you may be seated. And all the people perceived the thunderings and the lightnings and the voice of the horn and the mountains smoking. And when the people saw it, they removed and stood afar off. And they said unto Moses, Speak thou with us, and we will hear. But let not God speak with us, lest we die. And Moses said unto the people, Fear not, for God is come to prove you, and that his fear may be before your faces, that you sin not. And the people stood afar off, but Moses drew near unto the thick darkness where God was. And the Lord said unto Moses, Thus thou shalt say unto the children of Israel, Ye have seen that I have talked to you from heaven. You shall not make with me gods of silver, neither shall ye make unto you gods of gold. An altar of earth thou shalt make unto me, and shalt sacrifice thereon thy burnt offerings and thy peace offerings, thy sheep and thine oxen. In all places where I record my name, I will come unto thee, and I will bless thee. And if thou wilt make me an altar of stone, thou shalt not build it of hewn stones. For if thou lift up thy tool upon it, thou hast polluted it. Neither shalt thou go up by steps unto mine altar, that thy nakedness be not discovered thereon. Baruch Shemo. All right. Let's see here. First, we're going to start off in Leviticus chapter 19. By the way, hopefully this solves the problem that we were having last week. Well, last week we had an internet outage, but weeks before the video would cut in and out. I thought it was my Wi-Fi, and come to find out it's my computer. I'm on an old MacBook Pro, so I tried using my wife's HP laptop. So tested it during the week. It went okay. So no hiccups. So we'll see how this goes. Also looks clear. Huh. All right. So let's go start off in Leviticus 19. By the way, since we got cut off last week, this is the same lesson I had prepared from last week. A few minor add-ons, but yeah, internet devices, technology, it ain't stopping no show. It's God's day. All right, let's kick it off from the top. Leviticus chapter 19.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto all the congregation of the children of Israel, and say unto them, Ye shall be holy, for the Lord your God am holy.
For I, the Lord your God.
I, the Lord your God, am holy.
Good. So this is something that a lot of people say we can't do today. I've heard teachers in Israel say you can't be holy because everything is unclean. And because of where we are, we in our enemy's land, and everything is unclean. That's an excuse, and that's an easy cop-out, so that you don't have to separate yourself. I also read in this book where it said Jeremiah and Baruch were separated in the midst of the people. And the people at that time was Israel, and they were violating God's laws and serving idols. But yet Jeremiah and Baruch, his scribe, was separated in the midst of the people. Okay, so even though they lived amongst them, they didn't follow them. They didn't do what they did. And you could do the same thing here in the United Snakes of America, where we've been exiled because of our sins and the sins of our fathers, right? And I said United Snakes of America. It is not a secret. We know what this government has done. But I'm not here to bash the government. I want to convey a message to our people to not point the finger, to not hate the government, to not hate the man, whatever man, white man, black man, whatever man. Don't hate the man, period. Because it's not no one's fault but ourselves, our own faults why we are here. We can sit here all day and say because it's the sins of our fathers, the curses are upon us because of the sins of our fathers. But I also read in this book where there was a generation in the time of the prophet Ezekiel that said, the fathers have eaten the sour grapes and the children's teeth are set on edge. Is what it says, how it speaks how it reads in the King James Version. In Hebrew, it translates a little differently. It said, the fathers have eaten the sour grapes and the children's teeth are made dull. When you look up the word for dull or to be made dull, it means to be of none effect, to have a lack of interest, right? So we know this is metaphorical. And it wasn't talking about their actual teeth having a lack of interest for tasting something. It was about the lack of interest that the generations to follow after the fathers have sinned will be weaker, especially concerning the law. And we will not have interest to seek out the laws. We will not have interest to seek out our God and to return to him and repair the breach. It was our fault and our father's fault. And I keep saying ours to include that our father's sins are our sins because we are one. We are our father's seed. We are of the same line. We are of the same DNA. Their sins are our sins. And God spoke to us in what we just read. And he said, visiting the iniquities, poquer aon, visiting, punishing, remembering the sins of the fathers upon the children or the sons, rather say, unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me. Now, if you read this book carefully, you can note every time where God said we hated him, it didn't mean that you had to violate all of his commands for God to make such a statement. We violate one law and we hate God. The prophet Nathan came to King David and said, because you despise the word of the Lord, okay? And he violated one time. Okay, so we can count the amount of times that David sinned on one hand, right? But we shouldn't count the times when the prophet told him, your sin has been erased, is what it says in the Hebrew. He said, God has put away your sins. It said, God has erased your sins, right? But I want to make a point to note that not just because God erased his sins meant that he didn't have to pay for it, because the punishment from those sins still visited him in his lifetime. And that is a good thing. Because I said this before and I'm going to keep saying it. We would rather pay for our sins in this life. And that is a good sign if we are paying for our sins in this life. The book says God corrects those who he loves as a father chastises the son in whom he delighteth. So, you know, for all those sons out there, your father's hard on you is because he delighted in you. Mothers who watch the fathers be hard on the children or certain ones of the children, don't say, oh, he's picking on that one or he's harder on that one because he delights in them. And we got to learn to understand and accept the principles of what this book is teaching. Because from what I read, God's love towards us is unsurpassed. You can never equivocate any love from a man to another human being or a woman to another human being to the love of God towards us. And he corrects those who he loves as a father chastises the son in whom he delights. So correction, and I say this all the time, is the greatest form of love that you can ever receive from God or man. So a lot of times we get bent out of shape when people correct us. I mean, we're so hard-headed and stubborn and rebellious, we get bent out of shape when God corrects us. When we go through trials and tribulations in life, we blame other people. We make excuses. We complain. That's how you get mad when God corrects us. And we should instead be accepting of our punishment and take it cheerfully, because there are so much more that he has let us, because of his infinite mercies, he has let us slide and get by without punishment, because of what he said in Genesis chapter 6. We said, my spirit shall not always strive or punish man for his sins. He is flesh. He said, in his errors, rather say. He said, not punish man in his errors, is what the part that's left out in the English. In Hebrew, it says, bish shaga, in his errors. He is flesh, meaning God knows that because we are flesh, we are prone to sin. We are subject to sin. We don't have to be subjugated to sin, which is another definition. If you guys were paying attention today, Shamu was breaking down definition of Cain. Another definition of the name Cain means to be subjugated. Subjugated means to be ruled over. And I think we all have picked up by that lesson, by Chief Shama's lesson today, and from reading parts of the book, that men were given names not by chance, not because their parents just liked the name, or not just because the parents saw something in them, or because of something that happened in their lives, which is why they named the child that at that particular time, but because God's hand was in it, right? And I make this example all the time. Leah said, my husband will love me, or because I have borne my husband 3 sons, therefore will he be joined unto me now. And so her reason for naming the 3rd son of Jacob Levi was because she thought that because she had borne her husband 3 sons now, and she was the wife that was loved least of between the two, between Raquel and Leah, she thought that, you know, and that was of the case of how it was in ancient times, and probably some places still today, where the woman that gives the husband the most sons, he ends up loving her more. And that was the belief back then. So she said, well, he's going to love me more now, and he will be joined to me now, because she felt that he loved Raquel more. It showed. And so she named him Lewi, which means to be joined. Little did she know God's hand was in that, because, and it's going back to that same verse in Proverbs 16 verse 9, man devises his own way, but God directs his steps. So she thought for her reason she's going to name him Lewi, but God's hand was in it, because for his reason he caused everything to happen and transpire, because he knew that's how she would feel at that given time when Lewi was born, and she would name him Lewi, but not for the purpose that she stated, because it didn't work. Jacob was still not joined to her. He still loved Rachel more. But because God would use Levi to become the high priest and the tribe of the priests that would join the nation to God, right? So looking at all of this, we know that these men were not named these things for nothing, right? So Cain also means to be subjugated, and we see where that rang true in his life, where he was subjugated to sin. And that's a lesson for us, because God warned him and told him, which is another good point to note, that God always gives a warning. He always warns us. Even the wicked get a warning. We look at Wisdom of Solomon, and he mentioned that even the Canaanites, he said he gave them a place of repentance. And he said he could have destroyed them with one rough word. I believe it's Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 12, in the Apocrypha. He said he could have destroyed them with one rough words, or with newly beasts that newly came up, right, and destroyed them. He said, but he gave them place of repentance by killing them little by little. He said, peradventure, even though he knew, he said their malice was bred in them, and that their cogitation would not be changed. Your cogitation is your thoughts. Even though he knew that they would never change their mind, and that their hatred in them was bred in them, he still gave them place of repentance. And that's the mercy of our God. And he later on in the chapter, Solomon mentions that God did this for our purpose, for our benefit, that we, looking upon how God judged the nation that did most odious works of witchcraft, and the idolatrous priests that abused children, right? He said that when we judge, we hope for mercy, and that when we are to be judged, we hope for mercy, and that when we judge, we show mercy, right? So it's something you should always hope for, on God's mercy. Never mind how it looks today. King David said, weeping endures for a night, but joy comes in the daybreak, right? Because, and I also read in this book where God said, the joy that I will rejoice over you with is greater, far greater than the indignation that I have towards you, right? So that is a comfort to know how God deals with us. And if you're being chastised, it's a good thing. If nothing's happening to you, be afraid, be very afraid, and push up on God, because he chastised those who he loves. And I read it also in the Apocrypha of Wisdom of Solomon, I believe it's chapter 6, when he said, sharpen speedy judgment to be to them that be in high places. And it's not necessarily meaning you got to be a king or a president, just in high standards with God, because he holds you in a high esteem, because he showed you things that he did not show to the nations, because he showed you things that he did not show to other men, even amongst our own people, because he gave you a greater understanding and guided you with the Holy Spirit of discipline, which is wisdom, right? Discipline is not only when you force yourself to do the thing that's right, even though you don't feel like doing it. Discipline is also chastisement, right? So it's not only that strength to continue on and stay consistent in the thing that is good for you, but it's also chastisement. It's also to put someone in line. And so the Holy Spirit of discipline keeps us in line. And she tests us through trials and tribulations. It's not coffee, by the way. It's my ticino, herbs and yeah. Anyway. So being holy is not something that is impossible. God does not give us a command to do anything that is impossible. That wouldn't be just. And God is just in all things. Just and right is he. He said, ye shall be holy. So what is holy? We have to know what holy is in order to know how to become holy. And it means separated for the use of God. It's simple. We must separate ourselves from the ways of the world, from the worldly things, from the customs and traditions and practices of the nations, like we read in Leviticus chapter 18. You shall not go or do, you shall not follow after the doings of the land of Egypt, where he brought us out from. Neither shall we do like unto the doings. I'm giving you translation from Hebrew, right? After the land of Canaan, whither I bring you. And now some people might read that, some of us might read that and say, well, as long as it's not the customs or practices of, or the doings, rather say, of Egypt, or the doings, because that's what it reads in English, the doings of Egypt or the doings of Canaan, then we straight, you know. When you start to do your research and you find out that most of the customs and traditions and practices that are practiced today here in the United States of America and worldwide come from, I'm talking holidays, I'm talking traditions, I'm talking celebrations, and even the ways of the people, beliefs, superstitions, astrology, the zodiac. All of these things come from the practices of Egypt and Canaan. And they both learned it from the teachings of that wicked Nimrod, right? Which Chief Shama taught about earlier, right? And so he's the father, the grandfather of all pagan worship, of all religion. And religion, again, coming from relegare, right? The Latin word, meaning to tie down, to hold back. This is not what this way of life is. This is what I just said. It is a way of life. And this is what God gave when he chose the nation of Israel, because of our father Abraham, not because we were many, not because we were cute, not because we were great warriors, not because of anything of our own doing, but because of our father Abraham. And he chose his seed after him. And he gave us this most perfect and righteous law that we might be made privy to the things that please God. Today we're going to learn about some words in the Hebrew, and we're going to learn what the book teaches us that these words mean, because the book teaches us what words mean. It doesn't always correspond what we read in the dictionary, and we'll get into that before I start making examples and continue speaking verbatim. So, and by the way, if I speak verbatim, I'm going to cite the book always, all right? And you ain't going to hear me go off. My teacher taught me well. You shall fear every man. Oh, Tamshi, verse 3.
Ye shall fear every man his mother and his father.
I'm sorry, hold on. I'm sorry. I left y'all hanging. I said we must find out what holy means. Separated for the use of God, right? And to be separated, we're separating ourselves from the customs, practices, traditions of the people of the land. How do you do that? How do you do that aside from just staying away from them? Because remember, Jeremiah and Baruch were separated in the midst of them, right? You have to go to work. You have to rub shoulders with these people. You're going to go to public places where they're all around us. We can't escape that. But when you start adhering to these laws and you keep these laws and you put them into practice, not to say you won't fail, because I always say that we all know that failing is part of success. Right? Failures are rungs on the ladder to success. Every single one is necessary for you to get to the top. And so I always say that if you're not failing, it's because you're not trying nothing new. So raise the bar. And we should be failing. We should be trying new laws. We should be incorporating these laws into our life. And you're not going to get it right all the time on the first try. You're not going to say, oh, I made up my mind now. Because I have a made up mind, I'm never going to sin again. It doesn't work that way. You're going to sin. A made up mind just means that when you mess up, you're going to acknowledge that you messed up. Because righteousness is not determined by whether you sin or you don't sin. Righteousness is determined by what you do after the fact that you have sinned. So a made-up mind just means that once you sin, you acknowledge that you sin. You admit that you sin. You confess that you sin. You humble yourself to the truth. You humble yourself to what is right. You humble yourself to the principles of what right or wrong is in this book, the code of morality that is taught to us in the Torah, the first 5 books, the books of Moses in the Old Testament. And then the principles of wisdom that is found throughout the rest of the Tanakh and the Apocrypha, right? And we humble ourselves to those principles and we admit, and then you dust yourself off and you get back up and you do better, you improve, which is the key of life that God told Cain, right? That God gave to Cain. And he allowed himself to be ruled by his emotions. And this is another thing we need to look out for. So in order to be holy, we must first understand that we need that made-up mind. And that made-up mind means that you are going to constantly fight yourself. It means you're constantly going to reflect. First, you got to learn the law. So that means you're going to read the law every day, because you can't do something that you're not learning or that you haven't learned. So once you start learning, you put into practice as you go. You don't read the whole thing and say, all right, I'm going to wait until I read everything and I learn everything, and then I'm going to put on fringes. No, you start putting on your fringes and you start reading the law and you start incorporating the laws as you learn. And you will fail, and you dust yourself off and you get back up and you keep reading. There's a pattern and a formula to this that our teacher taught us. And it's good to read Kings. It's good to read Psalms. It's good to read the Proverbs. It's good to read Jeremiah, Isaiah, Ezekiel, Jonah, Hosea. All these books are great. And there's much wisdom to be found therein. But if you don't have a grounded foundation in the law, in the first 5 books of Moses, you will not understand the rest of those books. You will misinterpret those verses and those chapters when you read them, because it takes a foundation of the law in order to understand the rest of the book, why they did certain things, certain decisions that they made, if they were wrong or right. Because the book, when it tells us that it goes through the portions of history of our fathers, it doesn't always say, and he did wickedly, and he did when he did this thing. It just tells you what he did. And then later on, you will find out later on what happened to him because of it. I still see people today justifying what wicked men did, or what the men that the book said was wicked did, because they don't know the law. And then they follow those men. Don't drag it. They follow what those men did. And they justify it. They say, well, he did it. But if you knew the law, you would understand that he was violating the law when he did it. And so we need to have a foundation, a firm foundation in the law. You should be able to read that law over and over. My teacher taught me you never stop reading the law. He never stopped listening to the law after he couldn't read no more because he had glaucoma. He would listen to the law and the rest and parts of the rest of the book every single day. Every single day. The day didn't go past where he didn't read or listen to the law or have one of us read it to him. And he didn't just read it and listen to it and go about his business. He went into looking up words, finding out what it meant, what it says in Hebrew, so that we could get a better understanding of what the message and the lesson that God is trying to teach us, so that we can actually do it. Okay? So, first, if we're going to get past verse 2, if we're going to be holy like God commanded us, then we must have a made-up mind to first learn the law. And as you learn, you do. You put it into practice every single day for the rest of your life. And when you fail, you get back up and you improve. You improve. If you got caught stealing, and I'm just using this for example, you don't say, oh man, you wait till the next time I get the opportunity to steal. You wait, I'm going to prove to you, I'm going to prove to God that I ain't going to steal no more. You don't wait for an opportunity to steal again. You do something else that pleases God immediately to show him that you improve. If you got in trouble with your parents, you was talking back, or you were slacking on your schoolwork and you got grounded, you don't say, well, I'm going to wait. They going to see. Wait till the next report card. I'm going to show them. And when the next report card comes, you ain't going to wait that long because you grounded. You want to hurry up and stop being grounded. Or you want to avoid the butt whooping if that was the case. So what do? You start cleaning your room. You start taking out the garbage. You start washing dishes. You start picking up around the house. You start doing the things that you know that your parents delight in, that will make them happy. It's no difference with God. We need to start doing the things that please him, that he delights in. Sometimes it could be as simple as going inside yourself and cleaning up your ways. And it's very difficult when you don't have a heart, a made-up mind. A made-up mind also comes with humility. It's very difficult when we don't have a heart humble enough to admit when we're wrong. Because then you're going to read this book looking for justifications. Then we're going to listen to teachings for the teacher to say certain things that we could bend to make me look like I was right. So the law is unbiased. The law has no friends. Neither does wisdom. Wisdom makes men the friends of God. So there's no partiality in wisdom. As a matter of fact, the only thing that she's partial to is when you serve God in sincerity and truth. And then she's going to take a liking to you. She's going to come to you. It's like automatic. This is the formula that I'm talking about, that our teacher taught us. It doesn't come overnight. It comes with a track record. It comes with sacrificing for the law. It comes with reading and studying the law daily for years and putting it into practice. And you have to prove yourself to God and wisdom that we are worthy of her treasures by adhering to the principles. Tamshi, verse 3.
Ye shall fear every man his mother and his father, and keep my Sabbaths. I am the Lord your God. Turn ye not unto idols, nor make yourselves molten gods.
Ye shall fear every man his mother and his father, and ye shall keep my Sabbaths. It's in the same verse, ain't that something? You shall fear every man his mother and your father. Did it say you shall love every man his mother and his father? He already told us to honor them. Why do you think he said to fear them? And he also told us, thou shalt fear the Lord thy God. You know why? Because God knows us better than we know ourselves. God understands human nature better than humans because he made us. And he understands that we're not going to do anything. We're not going to obey if we don't fear. Obedience is also a form of love that the book teaches us, because God said to them that love me and keep my commandments. So every man says they love God. Ask anybody, you love God? So who's going to say no to that question? But the truth is, if we're honest with ourselves, we don't love God because we don't obey. We don't keep his commandments. And if we do, we break them whenever we get ready, whenever we get our feelings hurt, whenever we get in a tight squeeze, whenever the situation or life bears down on us. Thank you, Zacharias. Love is an action. It's not words. I love you means nothing. Oh, in a prayer, oh, God, you know I love you, God. You know, that don't mean nothing. As a matter of fact, he's going to hold you to it, and you're only putting yourself on blast. Because if you're doing the things that he hates, and then you turn around and you say you love him, what you trying to do? You trying to play God? You trying to run game on God? You try that with your parents and see if it works. Tell your parents every day, I love you, and then break all of their commands every single day. At some point, one of them is going to tell you, or both of them, mother, father, or mother and father, going to tell you, stop telling me you love me. You go against everything I tell you. Stop telling me that. Because everybody knows deep down in their core that love is not a game that you could play with and just pull a veil over people's eyes. It don't work like that. Love is shown, not told. Right? So God, love towards God from man is obedience. But if you look up the word love in the dictionary, you're not going to find that. Love towards children to their parents is obedience. But you ain't going to find that in the dictionary under the definition of love. So the book is going to teach us what words mean and how to conduct ourselves in a manner where we're living in truth and not a life of lies. And then patting ourselves on the back like we're doing something good. I'm separated. I serve God, you know. It's easy to change your clothes. It's easy to change your diet. People do that every day and they don't even serve God. But it ain't easy to change your ways. It ain't easy to change your mentality. It ain't easy to change the way you feel and align your feelings with what God said to feel for. Hate what God said to hate. Love what God said to love. Love who God said to love. To love God is to love your neighbor. And to love your neighbor is to love yourself. To love God is to love yourself, because he's the one that commanded, love your neighbor as thyself. And if you do what God said, that is the ultimate display of love towards yourself, because when you serve God, you give life to your own soul. What better display of love is there? So we got this thing twisted, because I'm making an excuse why I don't love my neighbor. I tell you why I don't love him, why he's so bad and why I can't love him. You know, and I ain't talking about the man that tried to kill you. I'm talking about our own brothers and sisters, our own people. You know how the saying goes. I seen a meme online that showed the police putting a pig in the back of a squad car, and they say it be your own people. And it's the truth. It be your own people. And at least with the enemy, we know they are enemies. But when you love your neighbor, when you decide to love your neighbor like you love yourself, that didn't mean they decided to love you like you love them. I'm getting ahead of myself. It's coming up. Fear every man his mother and his father, and keep my Sabbaths. Well, how do you keep the Sabbaths? And by the way, Shabbat, it says here, and the Shabbat day in Hebrew is the seventh day of the week. It is the only day given the title of Shabbat. Shabbat is speaking of God's Sabbaths that come in 52 times a year, every week, right? Every 7 days. How do we keep the Shabbat? Well, we got to understand the rules. First, you got to know what work is, because you shall do no work on the Sabbath day. So you have to know what work is, and you got to look up the word work. You okay, man? You got to understand what work is. And we need to look that up in the dictionary, because we think we know what words mean. And then you got to look up parts in the book for what is work, because he said preparing. They prepared for themselves manna. Ain't that right? And they gathered it. They went out to look for and gather it. And God said they violated the Shabbat if they did that. Right? The man gathering sticks on the Sabbath. Don't tell me, oh, because he was getting ready to start a fire. God don't kill you for your intentions. Okay? He's a just God. The act of gathering was the violation of the Shabbat. He died because he violated the Shabbat day. And God did not give him a break because it was the first time the Shabbat was ever violated since he gave them the law. No. There's no breaks, man. Not for certain violations. And if God said you die for this thing, and then he turned around and give you a break for it, then everybody's going to violate it. And so he had to make an example to show how holy the Shabbat day is, and that it should be kept and regarded and esteemed as that, as holy. Now, what does that mean for us? Don't do no work. Learn what work is. By the way, to wash means to put into water, to put under water, or to put into water. That's one of the definitions of wash. So I'm going to remind everybody again, we do this every day without thinking. We brush our teeth, and then we put our toothbrush under the water. You're washing your toothbrush. So something you can't do on Shabbat. You can brush your teeth on Shabbat. You just can't wet your toothbrush. You can't wet it or wash it. I ain't washing it. It was clean. I just put it under the water to wet it. You want to argue with the definition of the word? That's on you. But I was taught we're going to keep it exactly the way it's written to the best we can, according to what these words mean. If you read the description of this page, it says we teach the law the way it's written without adding to or taking away, according to the words, what they mean in Hebrew. And then we're going to look that up and see what it says in English to give you that exact definition so that we can figure out how to do the law. And that's what we're going to teach. You want to do it differently in your house? Hey, every tub got to sit on its own bottom. That's what my teacher taught us. But We can't argue with word definitions. If that's the case, you got to write your own dictionary. And then whoever agree with you will follow that dictionary. Other than that, we got to stick to what these words mean and not argue with wisdom. Right? So washing, cleaning, wiping is cleaning. We didn't wipe nothing. Something spilled, put a paper towel on top of it, leave it till the sun go down. If it was in a place where somebody could slip and fall on it. If it's on the countertop, so what? Leave it. I know inside of you that OCD is kicking in, right? And you wanna hurry up and wipe something up and not leave it dirty. Just leave it. It's not hurting nobody. It ain't gonna kill you to leave the mess till sundown. It's for the sake of the holiness of the Shabbat day, not to do work. This is a made-up mind. This is what it means. Right? So this is when you fight yourself to do what's right for the sake of God's holy Shabbat day. Not speaking your own words, not doing business, not seeking your own pleasures on this day. We don't go listening to any old music today. If we're going to listen to any music, it's going to be praises to God. We're not going to watch any old thing on TV or YouTube. If we do, it's going to be something about the book. That's it. And even then, you got to filter it. I see my kids watching certain cartoons, Bible cartoons, mind you, and they singing certain songs, and they switching up the lyrics with a Christian undertone. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Or they use a certain tune from a famous song. We're not doing that on Shabbat. We're not doing that because ain't nothing holy about that. And it's going to either say what the teachings out of the book, or that's it. And if it go off a little bit, well, it's because none of them are perfect. I understand that. Everybody don't understand everything that they read in the book. But we're going to make sure that the theme is sticking to the Old Testament. And that's it. And not giving no teachings or no insinuations or influences from any other God. Bottom line. So keeping the Shabbat day holy. That's how we keep it. We have to learn the rules of the Shabbat. No kindling fire on the Shabbat day. Fire has a flame. If it doesn't have a flame, it's not fire. Simple as that. We sticking strict to what the definition is. Electricity is not fire. That little bar that gets hot in your toaster oven is not fire. Right? So if it ain't fire, now if you touch something to it and it ignites, a paper towel or something, a piece of parchment paper, and it ignites, that's fire. Then you violated. So be careful. Right? But you can heat up your food on things, electrical devices that are made to warm food, as long as you don't boil or cook the food, because that's also a violation of Shabbat, right? We read throughout the book, they cannot cook on Shabbat. Not only just prepare, but they could not cook on Shabbat, right? All that is in Exodus. Tamshi, verse 4.
Turn ye not unto idols, nor make yourselves molten gods. I am the Lord your God.
Turn ye not unto idols. Turn. These words are there for a reason, the definition. In Hebrew, we have two different words for turn. We have shab, which means we talked about last week, before it's cut off. I don't know if you guys got that, but turn or return, right? I don't know if we even got that far in the teachings, but to turn or return, right? This is not what it says in Hebrew in this verse. It says al tifnu. You should not direct your attention to. You should not direct your face to. You should not turn towards, right? And it means to face or to direct your attention towards something, right? But the word turn, turning towards something, is not only directing your attention to it, right? So turning towards something is also following after the practice or the belief or the custom of this particular system or this particular religion, right? So we have to be mindful of that too. Turn not unto idols. So if it's acceptable to the idol, but it's not acceptable to God, We got to stay away from that. This way of life is a mentality. It will teach us and breed a mentality to learn to love what God loves and hate what God loves, what God hates, rather say, slightly, to hate what God hates. And I want to be careful in the way this statement is conveyed, because people say, use it as a justification and say, well, they hate the heathen because God hate them, right? People take things out of context and misconstrue the word of God. And that's why I said in being humble and coming to God with simplicity of heart, we have to do our best to read this with not only an open mind, but an open heart. And we spoke about, you've heard me say this is the same thing, but not only an open way of thinking and perceiving and seeing things, but an open heart to change your feelings about certain things. And why I say that is because I didn't always see things the way I see it. It took me to be homeless before I started to actually care about people who are poor and homeless that were not my people. You know why? Because God showed me that when I was homeless, strangers helped me. People I didn't even know looked out for me. Now, what kind of wretch would I be after God put me through that? And then I see some homeless person, but because they're not Israel, I walk past them and say, I'm not helping them. You see, a lot of times your mind won't be changed until you've been put in those shoes. And we say, well, God didn't command us to help the nations. I didn't read that. I know we like to read with a certain blinders on, but that's pride. Pride causes you to wear blinders, and you only see things one way. But we're going to get into it. And this is why we brought this chapter. No, make to yourselves molten gods. Masks of gods you shall not make to yourselves. So that's what it means. Maseka, it could mean a mask or a molded god. They used to make molds and pour liquid metal into it, and it would harden. And they pour cold water on it, and it would harden. And then they'd break the block off of it, and voila, you have the calf, right? Right. So they didn't just cast it into the fire, like Anna said, and out came this calf. No, they actually had to make it, and then they chiseled it to refine it. So we're forbidden to make idols to ourselves. But also, what does the word make mean? Again, the book tells us what words mean. So we look up the word make, and it, by definition, you have to actually put your hands to making it, or actually conduct the process of making the thing itself to produce it, right? Today you could click on your phone and it's a digital picture. Back in the days, they had cameras where it would and an actual image would come out. And that clicking of the photograph is you producing the photo, right? So that's a violation. Today, it's in the digital. It's the same thing as your screen on your TV. That's not a picture. That's not an image, right? We can't modernize certain things in the law and add to it. The image was a material thing that you can hold. It was a tangible thing. It didn't exist in a realm that we don't exist in, which is the digital realm. We don't exist in the digital realm. We exist in the physical realm, right? So once you go and print out that image, you produced it. You made it. Once you go and form it, you made it. But then we read in the book of Judges about a man named Micah. And he stole 1,100 pieces of silver from his mother. And when she was looking for it, she cursed him that took it. And then he felt bad and he said, I took it, mama. And she said, oh, blessed be thou of the Lord, because he confessed. And then she paid the founder. The founder is the man that produces images, or that makes things. This particular founder made images and idols, and she paid him to make an image for her son. All he did was accept the gift from his mother. And the book said in the next chapter, the image that Micah made. Now, all of these writings were not only inspired of God, they were the same way man devises his way, but God directs his steps. The same way God's hand was in it to name the child Levi, because he would be the nation of priests. He would be the father of the nation of the priests that joined the nation to God, is the same way God's hand is in everything that was written in this book. And by it being included in this book, and let's have some faith now in our God, that man does not just have the power and the authority to change God's words, and they translate it so it changed the Bible, so I don't go by that. I mean, how small is your belief in God's power that you think he would allow men to change his word? Now, there is another book that's attached to this book, which is a whole separate book that he also allowed, that our fathers did, by the way. Our fathers wrote the New Testament in the time of Rome, when we sold ourselves to do after the manner of the nations, after the manner of the Romans and the Greeks. And we wrote a book that told the story of Nimrod and his mama and the sun god, the divine child of the sun god. And they changed the names into Hebrew names to teach our fathers of the generations to come, to fool them into believing a myth, that they might turn and serve the gods of the Romans and the Greeks, to might serve the sun god, because we were the only nation under their rule that still served a different God, which was the Most High God. And even though they got most of our fathers to conform, there were still a few that had not conformed. And the Maccabees, which is who we are named after, who our teacher called our congregation, because we are the last ones left in these times that are adhering to the laws of Moses. They were the last ones in their time to adhere to the laws of Moses exactly the way that it was written. And they were a problem because they went to war and they fought for all them that hated and were against our God. And they commissioned and hired and gave positions in the government of our fathers, namely of the house of David and the house of the high priest Zadok, which is where they're called the Peretzim or the Pharisees, and the Sadducees or the Zadikim, which is Greek translations of those Pharisees is Peretzim, which means the line of Phares out of the tribe of Judah, which is the line that King David comes out of, the royal seed of our people. And then the Sadducees, which is from the Zadikim in Hebrew, which is, these are Greek translations, by the way. Zadikim, meaning they were the children of the high priest Zadok, right? Which is also in the time of King David, right? Or just after. So these were the priestly family of our people. So these were the two families of authority, and they hired our fathers amongst these two families because they knew the rest of our people would listen to them and looked at them as positions of authority. And so they gave them seats in the Senate and the Roman government. And before you know it, we had a New Testament, right? And so they incorporated that with the Old Testament to fool the generations to come, that the men that they were going to read about in the New Testament were just like the prophets in the Old Testament. And you believe them the same way you believe the men in the Old Testament. And they were our fathers also, which they were. Matthew was Matithya. Paul was Shaul. John was Yohanan. These were Hebrew men. Took on Greek names, right? So before we look at pointing the finger, we should blame ourselves. And our father's sins are our sins, right? So back to what the book is teaching us, what words mean. The man Micah made the image because he accepted it and took it to his possession. I don't want to hear nothing about, but my mama gave me this. It don't matter who gave it to you. If it's an abomination, it's an abomination. I don't care who the picture is of. It's not the person. It's just a piece of paper. And you showing God that you have more love for a poor replica of your family member that's on that piece of paper than you do for him. And this is where he said, you shall have no other gods before me. If you give that much reverence to a piece of paper, that you refuse to destroy it or get rid of it, or you hang it up on your wall and give it much reverence, or you dust it off, or you keep it inside of a locket or around your neck, or whatever it is that you're doing to show your veneration of that particular piece of paper, because that's all it is, then you have another God before the Most High God. And we need to be honest with ourselves. And that's why this way of life relies on the individual having a made-up mind. The whether or not we will be accepted of God relies on the fact if you're going to be humble enough to admit that we're wrong, humble enough to leave the teachings of our youth behind us, humble enough to forsake the ways of the nations that don't correspond or align with the commandments. And there are none of the ways of the nations that align with the commandments. That's why when a person decides to keep the laws of God or to serve God according to the laws in the Old Testament, your entire life changes. Your entire life must change. For some people, that's too hard of a thing. That's too much to ask. The way I look at it as it's a small thing to show our appreciation to God that made us, that gives us life, that wakes us up every single day. Obedience is a small thing to ask, especially since he made us. He knows what's better for us than we know what's for ourselves. Okay, Tom Shee, verse 5. Now we get into the good stuff.
And if ye offer a sacrifice of peace offerings unto the Lord, ye shall offer it at your own will. It shall be eaten the same day ye offer it, and on the morrow, and if aught remain until the third day, it shall be burnt in the fire.
Right. This is teaching us something. When you offer a sacrifice of peace offerings unto the Lord, you shall offer it that it may be accepted, is what it says in English. In Hebrew, the word for that it may be accepted, that ye may be accepted, is lirzonkem. And it means, the root word is ratzon. It means to be accepted. It also means of your own will. So it means the L sound in the beginning means for, or that it may be. Lirzon kem, to you all. That it may be accepted. That ye all, that you all might be accepted, or that if it is of your own, of you as all's own free will. So in order for the peace offering to be accepted, it must be of our own free will. And this is the logic of the Hebrew language that's teaching us what words mean. Whatever is acceptable to God, or whatever God is going to accept from us or count as acceptable, must be of our own free will. Not because you were forced. Excuse me. Not because you were forced. And if you had to be forced to do what's right, it don't count. And this is not only for the peace offerings. This is with all of God's laws. If we're not doing it of our own free will, it is not accepted. And this is why it takes a made-up mind. Because people will put their own soul to sale just to please man. Right? So, in this case, it's teaching us a principle through the peace offerings, right? And so it says, it shall be eaten the same day ye offer it, and on the morrow. This is the acceptable prescribed order for how to offer a peace offering to God, that it may be accepted of God. First, it has to be of your own free will. Then you can only eat it on the day you offer it and on the morrow. And if all of it, if any of it remain until the third day, you got to burn it with fire. Tom sheet, verse 7.
And if be eaten
If it be
eaten at all on the third day, it is abominable. It shall not be accepted.
But if you eat it at all on the third day, and you don't burn it with fire on the third day, but you decide you want to eat it on the third day, it's not accepted. Now, when I first read this, I didn't catch it. And over and over and over, I didn't catch it. But when you read it in Hebrew, something jumps out at you. Well, it jumped out at me. Because it says, im heakol, if yeakel, if it be eaten at all, or if it be surely eaten, bayom hashilishi, on the third day, pigul hu, it is abominable, or it is a vile thing. It becomes a vile thing. Something that God hates now. Where it was just a good thing. It was just a good thing that was being sacrificed to God. A peace offering, which is exactly what it sounds like. First, you offer your offering of sin offering if you've sinned, or trespass. And then you bring your sin offering to make an atonement for you, right? And then you make amends with God by making amends with the person, by bringing the principle and the fifth part, or whatever it was, if it was a material thing that you had to pay back to make amends against a person, or given the thing, if it was a holy thing, then you bring it to the priest. This is all Leviticus 5 and 6 that we went over a couple weeks back. And after that, you bring a peace offering, because now you want to make peace with God. We want to make amends with God. Thank you. Now we want to make amends with God, because we want to make peace with him. You're doing your part to make peace, or to make an atonement for the sin and make amends with the person. But now, what can you give to God? Everything belongs to him. The sacrifice of his saints is not a ram or a goat or a lamb on the altar. It's a sacrifice of our own pleasures, of our own ways, of the things that we do and practice that God hates, that we love. That's the sacrifice. So you bring a peace offering to show God, look, I'm willing also to pay out of my flock, to give up the best of my sheep and my goat to you, because I want to make peace with you. Isn't that what you do with your friend? You had a fallout, you had an argument, and you say, come on, man, come over, man, here, man. Or I'll come to your house, bring a bottle of wine, say, here, man, a peace offering, right? Or whatever it is. We do that amongst men. Well, this is what a peace offering is with God, to make peace to reconcile, after we have turned against him, after we have betrayed him, right? Because that's what a violation of the commandments are. It's a betrayal against our God that made us. It's like we forgot that he's the one that made us, and that we owe him our lives, literally. Right? So some people think about it like that's a bad thing. I can't do all this, you know what I mean? It's too much. I can't change this much of my life. But when you truly believe that these commandments were given to Moses by God to give to the children of his people, because he loved Abraham, because he chose them to give them laws, to teach them what was pleasing to him, everything starts to make sense. But if you don't believe that, we won't move. And we act like we say we're the children of Israel, but we act like we don't believe that. We question, we debate, we hesitate, we argue, we justify our own wickedness. We point the finger, we blame, we complain, we make excuses, anything but to adhere to these words, to humble ourselves to these words, not to a man, but to God. And that's another thing I want to point out. If you're not going to admit to a man where you violated the man, How are you reconciling with God? Because these laws teach us how to treat each other. These laws teach us how to treat people. I don't understand. I can't only humble myself before God and don't walk humble before men. It don't work like that. You can't be proud with men and say you humble with God. It's not the way it works. We show God that we are humble by how we treat people. We show God how much we love him by how much we love our neighbor. We display the love of God towards men. That is how you show your love for God. I mean, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but we're going to go into some of these verses in the chapter that's going to prove it. I said it before, show me a law in here that is not towards your neighbor. The frontlet and the bracelet. Well, that's our identity. And that shows us that we're separated. And even that is for your neighbor to inspire him too. It's for you, really. Name one of these laws that you doing it for God. Just name me one. Every single law is for your benefit, our benefit, the benefit of the community as a whole, the benefit of your neighbor. None of these laws is God. You don't benefit God. You're not doing him a favor. We don't do God favors by keeping his laws. Everything already belongs to him, even our own souls. So what can we give him that is not already belong to him? But obedience and how we treat each other and how you feel for each other. It ain't hard to tell once you start digging in and reading this book. It ain't hard to tell. So here's the part that jumped out. If it be eaten at all on the third day, it is abominable. It becomes an abomination. Lo yeratzeh. It shall not be accepted. But wait a minute now, because it don't only mean to be accepted, it also means of his own free will. So it translates to, if it be eaten at all on the third day, it is abomination, it is not accepted. And it also means it is not of his own free will. Wow. If it was his idea and his own free will to offer this offering, and he offered a peace offering to God, how is it? This is what I asked myself. How is it that once he eat it on the third day, it's no longer of his own free will? It got erased. It was not his own free will anymore. How is that possible? And then it clicked. When we use our free will to do our will, it is not accepted of God. But when we use our free will to do God's will, then we could be accepted of God. And since that man did not follow the exact prescribed order of how to offer an offering that is acceptable to God, he did his own thing and still expected to be accepted. That is no longer of your own free will, because you use your free will to do your will, not your free will to do God's will. So yes, God gave us a choice. He gave us the freedom and the privilege to choose to do whatsoever we want. If you use your free will to do God's will, you could be counted righteous in his eyes. If you use that free will to do what you want to please you, or to bend the rules to fit or suit yourself, it's wickedness. And ain't no two ways about it. There's no in between. There's no gray area with the law. This is not metaphorical. This is not allegorical. The words mean what they say what they mean, and it is not a metaphor. It is not allegory. This is not some fake fictitious characters that we're reading about. This is real people, real live events, real statutes, real ordinances that God gave real people of a real nation to govern themselves according to what is acceptable in his eyes. That's what these laws are. And that's why I tell you everything from the proper way to use your bathroom, to use the bathroom in nature, and also the proper way to go to war. the proper way to manage your household, the proper way to eat, the proper way to dress, all according to what is acceptable to God. If you bend that according to your own likes and desires, it is not of God anymore. And if that's not of God, you can be godly, like unto God. These laws teach us what is godliness, what is holiness. You can't bend it to suit yourself. We can't hope to be accepted and not do it exactly to the letter. Don't work like that. Cain tried to offer an offering. What was his intention? To seek God's favor. God said, nah, son, you went the wrong way. If you just improve, you'll be lifted up. But if you do not improve, sin lies at the opening. The opening of what? Your mind, your heart, your spirit. Sin is lying right there, crouching, it says, at the opening. To you, going to be his desire. He's going to always desire us to tempt us to sin. He said, not thou mayest. It says thou shall rule over it, or him, rule over him, because it is a spirit, just like wisdom is a spirit. And we have to be able to know from whence they came, from where they come from, right? What brings on sin? When you follow your own ideas, your own heart, your own mind, your own feelings, your own emotions to do what is against the principles or the order of life that God set up, or the laws, right? Where does wisdom come from? When you adhere to those same principles, when you apply the law, when you live by it, when you put it into practice, when you perform it, this is where wisdom comes from. This calls wisdom to you. And it's not going to happen once, overnight, one time. It's going to happen through years by you proving yourself with a track record of constantly making sacrifices to do what God said is right. Then, and only then, is wisdom going to come to you. And then when it does, she's going to test you. Are you going to adhere to what she's teaching? Or are you going to stay stuck in your ways? Because if not, she can't bring you no further. You're going to stay exactly where you're at. That's where humility comes in again. But everyone that eateth it, verse 8.
Therefore everyone that eateth it shall bear his iniquity, because he hath profaned the hallowed thing of the Lord, and that soul shall be cut off from among his people. And when ye reap the harvest of
so everyone that eateth it on the third day is going to bear his iniquity. It's not like you can't escape that. If you violate any one of these laws, you bear the iniquity. Can you see iniquity? No. Do you walk around? Does that man walk around like he's carrying a heavy load on his back? No, you can't see it. He might look like he's shining in the eyes of the people, but he's bearing iniquity. And it's weighing him down in the spirit. And when it weighs us down in the spirit, we have a hard time accepting guilt. We have a hard time admitting fault. We have a hard time resisting temptation. We have a hard time humbling ourselves. We have a hard time accepting rebuke. We have a clouded judgment after that. We walk around with blinders on when we can only see things one way, because pride is driving the reins of this horse, and we're the horse. We're wearing the blinders. You know, you all seen the race horses. They got these things on so they can't see nothing but what's in front of them, so they don't get distracted. Pride is the jockey, and the horse is wearing the blinders, and we are the horse, and we can't see it no other way but our way, because we refuse to adhere, because we are bearing iniquity. And until we improve, we continue to bear it, and we continue to see things only our way. And then when we read the book, we start to look for things that justify us. And we say, oh yeah, see, I knew I was right. The book is only a mirror if we're humble enough. And whoever thought thinks that the book is supposed to be a mirror to show us where we're going right, that's backwards. The book is a mirror to show you where you're going wrong. And so when we look at the book and we read the book and we steady finding things that make us look right, you got to step back and check yourself. You got to say, wait a minute. This is the wrong approach here. I'm supposed to be reading this book to see where I'm going wrong. God is trying to show me where I'm going wrong. But if I'm too proud, he can't show me because I'm too busy looking for what is justifying me to make me look right. So we got to come down off of this high horse and we got to humble ourselves and look for where we are going wrong when we read. And that's what our studies should be about, self-reflection. In order to get in tune, real self-awareness is separating yourself from yourself, stepping outside of yourself to become less selfish and more selfless. And if we can't focus on doing that, we are stuck inside of ourselves and you're going to be selfish. And you're going to read this book with a selfish mindset. And that's not what the law teaches us. It teaches us to consider other people. My brother Shama taught about it today. This law is about consideration. I don't know how many times that word came up in teachings, but I kept hearing it over and over. It's about considering. It's about considering. And then when I listen to teachings, I'm not listening to teachings. I shouldn't be listening. I'm giving you myself for an example, but we should not be listening to teachings to point where other people are going wrong. It should be for me. Don't say, oh, he's talking about me. Say, he's talking about me. It's the same phrase, but it's just a different frame of mind. Be humble enough to admit that that's me, that's still violating, that's not considering other people. I got to step outside myself. Sometimes people tell us about ourselves and we ain't ready to see it yet. So we get mad at them. You know, if it's your wife, you won't get mad at her. You know, what you trying to tell me? You ain't trying to teach me nothing. You know what I'm saying? I've been there. And I have to recognize God will use people that's closest to you to check you. It don't matter who it is. You see, we're supposed to be humble enough to not look at who, but what, right? It's not who is right, it's what is right. Man, listen. Sometimes we put ourselves on blast because the same people that we teaching, like in my house, I'm teaching my wife and I'm showing her, teaching her what it means to be humble and adhere to what is right and wrong. But when it's come time for me to humble myself to when I'm wrong, I don't want to admit it. What kind of message am I sending? So the next time she get out of line or out of shape or don't want to adhere to the principles of wisdom or what's right in the book when I'm correcting her, who am I to say anything? I'm telling you, man, I said it before, I say it again. Your family going to treat you the way you treat God. It's just the way it is. God has a way of putting our own ways before our face. If he cares about you. And he cares about us all, don't get it twisted. But some of us are closer than others. And it's not something where you pat yourself on the back for that. It's something that you walk more cautiously. You humble yourself more. I read in this book where it said, the greater thou art, the more humble thyself. And it just don't mean the richer you are. It means the more you are uplifted into a position, even if it's not amongst men, but in the heavens where God is showing you things that he's not showing the average man and teaching you and guiding you in wisdom, you better be cautious because pride is waiting and lurking at every corner. And it's not a light thing to play with it. We should always be open to correction. We should always be open to admitting guilt. Otherwise, what are we doing? Who am I working on? You? I'm working on you. You can't work on me. I can't work on you. I got to work on me. You got to work on you. The best relationships, whether it be husband and wife, parents to children, friends, brother to brother, teachers to students. The best relationships is when every party involved is working on themselves. Now we cooking with fire. Now we cooking with fire. Now all of a sudden I can understand you better because I'm working on me. I ain't trying to work on you. I ain't trying to fix you. You got to fix you. I can't fix you. When we love our neighbors like we love ourselves, then we start to work on ourselves. Because if I don't work on myself, I don't love myself. How can I love you? We got a whole messed up concept of what love is and how to show it. Because I show you love because I expect it back from you. That ain't love. You want to know what love is? You want to learn what love is? Learn from a tree. A tree will teach you what love is. A tree will teach you what love is. The tree don't say, yeah, I'm going to give you these fruits, but you better water me, or I ain't giving you nothing. And you say, well, you got to water the tree to get the fruits. No, you don't, because God will make it rain. The sun, the moon, the bees, the trees, the stars, God himself, the maker of them all. The greatest display of their power is that they fulfill their purpose, which is to give, to provide, without any expectation of anything in return. That's love. Love is also unconditional. If I get mad at you and I don't want to be around you no more, man, then I never loved you. We get our feelings hurt, and then we use that as a justification to say, well, why I don't do this, why I don't do that. But that ain't love. Those actions are not love. Love means to hate. It means to avert oneself, to avert, to turn from, turn away from. If your right hand offend you and you cut it off, have you not cut off your own right hand? And whose hurt did that work out for? Not anybody else's but your own. We're not getting this thing right, man. We're too caught up in, I'm hearing too much about what about me? What about me? Who's considering me? Well, I got a news flash. If you a saint, there is no what about you. If you keeping these laws so that somebody could do the same thing for you, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. If you give because you're looking for what you could receive in return, then you gave for the wrong reasons. If you love because you was hoping to be loved the same way in return, then you love him for the wrong reason. That ain't love. That's manipulation. When you love your neighbor like you love yourself, you're going to understand that your neighbor is not going to love you the way you love them. And that's just the way it is. And when you're on that path to sainthood, you're going to understand that that's just part of it. Expect nothing in return. No, I'm going to expect it. Well, that's when you're going to be let down. I'm sorry to tell you. Take it from me. You're going to get let down. I promise you. Because the same people you love ain't going to love you back. And that's just the way it is. Just like the prophets, just like Moshe. The people didn't love him the way he loved them. They wanted to kill him. And yet he cried out for God and begged God not to kill them. They turned on him, wanting to stone him. Not once, not twice, multiple times. Jeremiah. Let me not spoil it. Tamshi.
And when ye reap the harvest of your land, thou shalt not wholly reap the corners of thy field, neither shalt thou gather the gleanings of the harvest. And thou shalt not glean thy vineyard, neither shalt thou gather every grape of thy vineyard. Thou shalt leave them for the poor and stranger. I am the Lord your God.
You see? That's the stranger of our people. I don't read that here. It said the stranger. Well, it's the gear. It says gear. Okay, we're going to get into that. There's a verse coming up about this later on in the same chapter. If he's keeping the, we get to it. Don't glean it. In other words, whatever God gave you is not yours only. Sometimes he give us things just to see what we're going to do with it, to give to who he said to give to. Even the laws of planting your vineyard is for your neighbor, because you got to leave it for the poor and the stranger. And don't forget, another chapter tell you got to put up for the widow, fatherless, and the Levite and the poor, and put it in your storehouses, and every 3 years you give it to them. That's 3-4 harvests every single year for 3 years straight, a tenth of it. Then you got to give a tenth to the priest. Then you got to make sure that whatever you leave for the poor and the stranger is sufficient for them to eat. You say, man, that's enough. And then you got more poor people or strangers, coming through your field, then you didn't leave enough. And whatever they leave, the beasts of the field shall eat. So it's not only about looking out for people, it's also looking out for God's creatures. You see how this thing teaches us that we're supposed to be united and have a community, and everybody's supposed to look out for everybody and everything, and we're all supposed to be one. But that's a hard concept for people to understand when we've been taught to be selfish and generations to be against each other and been manipulated by the system to hate each other. It's a hard thing. You don't make yourself soft because you're vulnerable or because you love truthfully and unapologetically. You make yourself soft when you're being ruled like a robot and programmed to hate people. That's when you're soft, because you're not running you no more. You being ran. You being programmed. You being puppeteered. That's where the weakness comes in. God teaches us to be a free people, a free thinking people. That takes more strength than anything that you ever tried in your life. Just try once to think freely without being manipulated or programmed by the teachings of your youth or what you see on TV and social media. Tom Shee.
And thou shalt not glean thy vineyard.
Verse 11.
Ye shall not steal, neither deal falsely, neither lie one to another.
Lo tignobu. You shall not steal, rob, or deceive. It says the word for steal. Neither shall you deal falsely. Right? It says the same thing. You shall not deal in lies. Falsely. Lo tikakashu. Lo tishakru. You shall not lie. Ish ba'amito. A man to his people. And you have to know what a lie is. Sarah said, I did not laugh. She's not a liar. She was afraid. David spit in his beard and scratched at the wall when he was in the hands of Lachish. But he was not a liar. Oh, man, he was deceiving. You got to know what a lie is. Jacob didn't lie to his father, pretending that he was Esau. He was keeping his mother's command. You can't break a law to keep a law. Right? If he did not do it, he would have dishonored his mother, which would have been greater sin. Whoever gives the command is the one that did it. I learned that from the book too. You don't get that from TV. You don't get that from school. You ain't going to get that from a dictionary. The book teaches us what words mean and what the concepts of truth are. What honesty is. What honor is. Right? So the king gives a command, puts a hit. Thank you. That's very distracting. Let's not do that, okay? The king gives a command to put someone to death. The man that went out to actually carry out the hit, that's not who the king said killed them. That's not who the book said killed the man. It said the king killed him. Whose ever name is on it, the decree is who killed him. Jezebel took Ahab's ring and his signet and wrote a letter to get Naboth killed and sealed it. And God sent Elijah the prophet to Ahab and say, you have murdered. We got to understand what God counts as a lie, what God counts as honor, what God counts as honesty and uprightness and integrity. We read that from reading the book. We get that from reading the book. And this is where you have to detach yourself from what you previously learned, what we have been brought up or taught to think, the concepts that were taught to us in school, at home. We have to forsake those and start over again and learn from the book. That's how we come to seek him in simplicity of heart. Tamshi?
Thou shalt
Verse
not
12.
Oh, and ye shall not swear by my name falsely, neither shalt thou profane the name of thy God. I am the Lord.
You shall not swear by the Most High's name falsely. So shalt thou profane the name of God. First of all, I read one part in the book where it said, make not use of intemperate swearing. Don't make a habit or a practice of swearing, because in one of those, you're going to be wrong. You're going to say you swear to something that you thought you saw or you thought you heard, or that you were just for sure it was right, but you were wrong. And then you use God's name in it. And we don't want to do that, because then we're calling God a liar. We're saying God is my witness that I saw this and this is what happened. And if you could be wrong. So don't make a practice of swearing, period. Liars like to use the phrase, I swear to God, just to make people believe them. Don't be like them. The truth needs no defense. You don't have to continue to convince someone when you're telling the truth. Say it one time. If they don't believe it, that's it. What more are you going to do? God is going to be on your side. Just stick to what you saw and don't add or to it, or don't take nothing away, or stick to what you know for sure to be a fact. And this is where humility comes in also, because everybody wants to look right. And I say this over and over again. There's nothing wrong with saying, I don't know. It's not a bad thing, because if you don't know, you can learn. If you think you know it all, you know nothing, because you haven't even scratched the surface of what it is to know things. Anything. Knowledge could be the knowledge of righteousness or wickedness. That don't make you righteous. Wisdom is the knowledge of the things that are pleasing to God. And wisdom says, humble yourself. You ain't always got to be the one that's right. You ain't always got to be the one that's, look what I know. Hey, me, me, me. It's not about you. It ain't about me. My life is not about me. I keep hearing that. It's my life. I chose this. What I want. There's too many I's in here. Even the alphabet ain't got that many I's. There's only one. There's too many I's. Always me, me, me. Like you're practicing for a concert to sing or something. It's not that many me's. Your life is not about you. My life is not about me. My life is about how I treat other people according to God's laws. Expecting way too much out of this life. Can't be thankful for socks. Socks. Something that a lot of people in third world countries never own a day in their life. But yet you got a drawer full of them. I got too many to fit in my sock drawer. And I can't be thankful. I ate a meal last night. I ate a meal today. I can't be thankful. Always expecting, looking for what other people could do for me and give me. How we sound and look before God. Ungrateful. That's how. Gratitude is the key to happiness. You know what? Gratitude is also the key to maintaining a guilty conscience. Do you know that? And our teacher gave us a key. He said the key to pushing up on God, to maintain that spirit, to always push up on God, is a guilty conscience. You want to know why? I learned this from my teacher, not his words, his actions. You know why he maintained that guilty conscience? Because he never forgot where he came from. And he's always thankful to God for bringing him so far. He was always thankful for everything that he had. You give him a little and he'd be happy with it. Never complain. I learned that from my father too. My father been poorer than poor. Came to this country with nothing on his own at 16. You think your life is hard? Man, our parents went through way worse than us, and they didn't complain half as much as we complain about. They say every generation get weaker, but man, I refuse to use that as a crutch. I don't know about you, man, but crutches is for crippled people. You won't be crippled, then that's a choice. The law is to make us strong, to help us stand firm, to give us strength and to strengthen each other. And I'm sorry if correction seems like it's weakening. You take it as something that's weakening you. I'm sorry, but that's because we're too proud. We're not thankful enough. Imagine you had nobody to correct you, and you just followed your heart at every whim. You'd be in worst case. Sometimes we gotta consider I might be wrong. You know, my wife tell me something and I don't like it, and I shoot it back at her. You know what I mean? But then later on, I think about myself and I say, man, what if she's right? Then I start to analyze it according to the book and the things that I've taught her. Imagine me not upholding the same principles that I taught my wife and then expect her to follow it. That's crazy. That's backwards. Same thing with my children. Teach them not to lie, and then they see me lying. No, well, you know, I ain't got to keep my word this time because no. If I gave my word, I got to keep it, and that's it. Nothing could change it. Our fathers died to keep their word. I don't want to hear about no justifications. I don't want to hear about no excuses. I don't want to hear no complaining. I don't want to hear no complaining because God killed them in the wilderness for complaining. See, we got to read this book and be honest with ourselves. And that takes humility, and guess what? It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. But let me tell you something else I learned. Pain refines the heart just like fire refines iron. Pain and struggle makes the heart better. You don't believe me? Read the Proverbs. It's better to be in the house of mourning than in the house of mirth. I think Chief Mikhail brought it last week. Right? So what that tell you? Pain, struggle, trauma. It makes the heart better. And I can tell you from my own experiences. Tamshi.
Thou shalt not defraud thy neighbor, neither rob him the wages of him. That neither rob him,
comma.
The wages of him that is hired shall not abide with thee all night until the morning.
Right. Don't oppress your neighbor, it says. But it don't say oppress in Hebrew. It says ta'ashok. Ashok means not only to oppress, it means to, it don't only mean to defraud, it means to oppress. Right? So don't oppress your neighbor, nor rob him. The wages of him that is hired shall not abide with you all night until the daybreak. So what's that teaching you? If you got somebody working for you and you don't pay them every day, you robbing them. That's what that is. The book is teaching us what these words mean. Rob is not only when you go stick up somebody. You rob somebody when you defraud them of that which belongs to them or they deserve or that you owe them. Tom Sheen.
Thou shalt not curse the deaf, nor put a stumbling block before the blind, but shalt fear thy God. I am the Lord.
Thou shalt not curse the deaf, nor put a stumbling block before the blind. Now we read this and we think about the people who are physically deaf and physically blind. And it's not only talking about who's physically deaf and physically blind, which is a wicked thing to curse a deaf person that can't hear you. And because they can't hear you, you think it's cool and funny to curse them. Or to put a stumbling block in front of a blind man, and then when he trips, you laugh. That's a wicked thing. It's not only talking about that. And how do we know? Because the word for stumbling block is mikshol. And a mikshol means to lead into waywardness. It means to lead into waywardness. Waywardness is off of the path of the correct path, off of the path of an instruction. And the Torah means instructions. So when you teach somebody the wrong way to do things, you tell them it's okay to do things this way, and it's not in alignment with what we learn from the laws, you are leading the blind astray. And I read in this book where it said, woe be to the shepherds, to the pastors that lead my flock astray. It's not a light thing to teach the law. It's not a light thing to get up in front of a congregation or to be right or to start a YouTube page and to start teaching people. My teacher used to say, everybody want to be a chief, but nobody want to be the Indian, right? He also told me, you know what makes a good teacher? A good student. In order to be a good teacher, you got to be a good student first. And it's not a light thing that everybody should look to want to be in this position. And I'm going to tell you why, also from experience and from reading the book and from my teacher. When you step up on a platform to speak the word of God, you are going to be bound to every single word that comes out of your mouth. And God will charge you first before any of the people that you're speaking to. And when you go against what you speak and you teach out of your mouth, you're going to be the first one to get banged. It's not a light thing. I'm trying to tell you. And to seek a position of authority over people means you're not ready for the position of authority over people. I didn't ask to be a teacher. I don't think any of my brothers asked to be a teacher, right? Moses didn't ask God to bring his people out of Egypt. He didn't volunteer for it. As a matter of fact, he didn't want the job. Abraham didn't ask, right, to be the head of many nations, the father of many nations, right? These men were humble, and they didn't volunteer themselves to be leaders or kings. Saul hid himself. As much as people like to talk bad about Saul, he hid himself amongst the stuff when they were looking for him to be anointed. And he was tall. So because he was tall, his shoulders, from shoulders and upward, he was above the people. He couldn't hide. But he ran from the job. And yes, he made mistakes, but he's coming back in the quickening. So it shows you that the men that God chose to be anointed were chosen for a purpose. The men that God chose to be in a position of authority over their people were chosen for a purpose. And it was not something that they sought after in their life. They didn't want it. And because of the humility, that's what made them fit to be in that position. Because a shepherd has to have an eye to the flock. A shepherd can't look to the flock and say, well, what about me, oh sheep? What you gonna give me today? A shepherd has to be humble enough that he has a caring eye for everybody that is under him. And that person or that individual is not going to remind you or remind the people that they're under him. They're going to play the position and look to serve the people. Look to serve the ones that they've been placed over. So again, this law has no friends. It's a double-edged sword and it cuts both ways. And the teacher is in more peril and danger for not following them or adhering to them than the people that he's speaking to. This is something to where we're all bound. We are all in the same boat. We are all bound by these words, whether we like it or not. And whether you admit it or not, we will be charged thereby. Tamshi, verse 15.
15. Okay.
You shall do no unrighteousness.
Not do no unrighteousness in judgment. Thou shalt not respect the person of the poor, nor honor the person of the mighty, but in righteousness shalt thou judge thy neighbor.
Okay. You shall do no unrighteousness in judgment. What is unrighteousness in judgment? Any judgment that is your own judgment and that is not according to the judgments in this book. For some laws, there is no judgment. Leave it alone. Don't add to the law. Don't incorporate what you think is right or what should be done. Leave it alone. You leave that to God. Whatever judgments were in this book, they were enforced to keep order amongst our people. These judgments were put in place not only to keep and put away the evil from amongst us, but also to make reconciliation amongst ourselves, to make a reconciling between two parties that were either in disagreement or against each other or in a discrepancy. And therefore we had judgments to promote a reconciliation. But you know what? Even if both parties are forced to go by the reconciling or adhering to the judgments to reconcile the situation or the matter at hand, both parties, matter of fact, all parties, not just the two parties involved, but everybody that knows about the violation also have to be humble enough to accept the judgment. How do we know when we don't accept the judgment? Because it's not enough. It's never enough. The judgment was executed, but I still got a grudge. The judgment was carried out, but hey, man, you know, don't say you forgive, but you don't forget. Because if you forgive, you let it go. You know what the don't forget part is supposed to be? That I remain aware that if this could be done, I got to watch out. I got to make sure that I don't do it. And I also got to watch out and make sure and see that I don't put too much trust in somebody because they might do it again. Now, if the individual shows through actions, there goes that word again, through actions, that after reconciling, there were actions taken, then why can't we let it go? Sometimes the two parties that were at the discrepancy, they cool. After the judgment has been, they cool. They love each other again. And other people still mad. Are we with God's judgments or are we not? Do we accept God's judgment as fair and just? Or do we need reasons to justify our hatred and our grudges towards each other? I mean, you know, the law teaches us one way of doing things that is righteous. Any other thing that's carried out, whether it be in here or outwardly, or with the words of my mouth or in my thoughts, that is not in alignment with that one way of doing things righteously, is wickedness. As simple as that. And again, every tub must sit on its own bottom. So you may not be bearing a grudge, but I'm still bearing a grudge. You straight. I'm the one with the problem. And the problem ain't with you. It's between me and God. You just continue loving me like you love yourself. I got something I got to deal with inside of me. And if I don't, then I face a fate that is not becoming of a saint. And that's a light way to put it. Right? Again, the law has no friends. And when we're correcting, when we're rebuking, we got to remember that. You know, there is a rebuke that is not comely, period. That's a statement. You know, people will hate you for nothing. And what you going to do? Hate them back? It's just the way it is. People will not love you back the way you love them. It's just the way it is. We got to learn to accept. We got to learn to accept. That's just the way it is. I am bound to do thou shalt and thou shalt not. I have to demand that of myself. I can't demand that of you. Only you can demand that of you. I have to demand that of me, regardless of what you choose. Tom Shee.
Thou shalt not go up and down as a talebearer among thy people, neither shalt thou stand against the blood of thy neighbor.
Thou shalt not go up and down as a talebearer. The word for talebearer is rakil. It means a slanderer. Slander is different than talebearing. Talebearing is I'm telling your business out there to everybody. Slander is when I report lies on your name to defame your character. Right? And this is where we got to be careful, because hatred, pride, grudges, they all build up to cause people to do this, to cause us to defame people's character and make statements that are not true. Try to get bandwagoners on our team. Yeah, we want people to join us in our grudge, in our hatred. So we make up things and to defame someone else's character. And we got to be careful, man. We got to humble ourselves. At the end of the day, until you have that shoe on your foot, you're not going to change nothing. And if you had the shoe on your foot and you're still doing it, and you've been the one that was violated, what is it going to take? God's already showing us our own ways before our face. What is it going to take for us to humble ourselves to these words and adhere to the principles of righteousness? How hard is it to love? Tom Shee.
Thou shalt not hate thy neighbor in thine heart. Thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor and not suffer sin upon him.
Thou shalt not hate thy brother in thy heart. Right? And it says, brother. Thou shalt surely rebuke thy neighbor. It says neighbor. And not bear sin because of him, or on account of him is what it says. Lo tisa alai ket. You shall not bear sin on account of him or because of him. So that means if I don't rebuke my neighbor, I hate him. And if I don't rebuke my neighbor, the sin is on me as if I did it before God. The book is telling us what these words mean. It says, Lo tisa alai chet. You shall not bear sin because of him. On account of him. So if you don't rebuke, you know he did it, and you don't say nothing, you did it. It's the same. I'm guilty because I didn't say nothing. And a lot of times we don't rebuke the brother because we hate him. That's why I ain't gonna tell him where he's going wrong. But we got it backwards. The one that rebuke you, you say he hates you. That ain't what I read in the book. So that means it's something in my mind that ain't right. If I'm looking at you like you hate me when you rebuke me, I'm something wrong with me, because the book says that rebuke is love. How you know? All right, let's go. Proverbs. I'm coming back to Leviticus 19. Go to Proverbs verse 9 and start from verse 8. We're not going to go through the whole chapter. Just go through verse 8.
Okay.
Proverbs 9, verse 8. You got it?
Wait. Now I do. Okay. Reprove not a scorner, lest he hate thee. Rebuke a wise man, and he will love thee.
The book tells us who we are. All we got to do is be honest with ourselves. If I get mad when I get rebuked, then I'm a scorner. If I love the guy that rebukes me, then I'm a wise man. It's simple. No. It wasn't like, can you just imagine King David, when the prophet Nathan come to me and say, thou art the man. Oh, whoa. It wasn't like that. No. That was a whole different situation. It had nothing to do with no little lamb. Can you just imagine King David trying to justify himself when getting rebuked by the prophet Nathan? No, of course not, because he was humble, even as a king. He went from 100 to saying that man should be killed, to put to death, to immediately humbling himself. In the height of his emotion and anger, he humbled himself. By the way, it don't say scorner in Hebrew. It says let's. Some translations say that's scorner, but that also means a fool. Let's. Lamed Zabde Sofig. Let's. Reprove not a fool, lest he hate thee. So if I hate the one that rebuked me, I'm a fool. If I love the one that rebuked me, I'm a wise man. The book tells us who we are. Ain't none of us wiser than King Solomon. He wrote the Proverbs. Tamshi, verse 9.
Give instruction to a wise man, and he will be yet wiser. Teach a just man, and he will increase in learning. Right.
He said, give it to, in the Hebrew translates, give it to a wise man, or administer it to a wise man. And what? Administer what? We're just talking about reproof. Administer the reproof to the wise, lechakam, where yecham od, and he will be more the wise. Hoda lezadik means to inform or to instruct. The righteous, where Yosef lekwak, and that which is lekwak means to learn, or to which is acquired. That which is acquired, it also means to learn. And he will add unto his learning. He will increase his learning. Why? Because he received the instruction. He received the information. Hodah, it also means to learn. Also means to teach. Also means to attain knowledge or to gain knowledge. It's different to the spelling to the Hodah from the Hodah, which is a confession, right? This comes from the root yada, which is to know, right? Knowledge. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Verse 10, Tamshi.
The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the holy is understanding. For by me thy days...
That's good right there. Sorry. It says, Tikilat Chakma. Wow. Yirat El Shaddai. The beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord. What is the fear of the Lord? In simple terms, the fear of the Lord is when you are afraid to follow your own heart and your own feelings. You weigh out your thoughts in your mind. You check yourself constantly about your emotions and your feelings to make sure that you're not going against anything that God said to be right or wrong. That's the fear of the Lord. When you're weighing out in your head, according to the book, when you take yourself outside of yourself to look at yourself from an outsider now with an unbiased opinion of yourself, according to what is right and wrong in the book, and then judge yourself thereby before you make a move. That's the fear of the Lord. And that takes humility again. I have to be able to admit that, you know what? I'm probably not right in the way I feel right now, especially in the height of my emotion. That's when we have to be on point the most. Okay, let's go back to Leviticus 19. This video is titled Part 1 because I knew I wasn't going to have enough time to go through everything that I wanted to bring. So next week we'll touch up on
which verse will be at?
Proverbs 9 and also Jeremiah 18 and
What?
Wisdom of Solomon. We left, excuse me, I will tell you, but don't interrupt like that, okay?
Yeah.
You're still learning, son. You don't interrupt the speaker, the teacher. 18.
Thou shalt not avenge nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people, but thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. I am the Lord.
Thou shalt not take vengeance nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people, specifically towards the children of thy people. Why did God have to tell us not to bear a grudge against each other? Because he knows that's how we're going to get down. You shall not take vengeance. You know what vengeance is? Well, you did it to me, I'm going to do it to you. It don't only mean like, you killed my brother, now you must die. No, that ain't the only vengeance. It's also, you did whatever you did wrong to me that I didn't like, I'm going to do it to you now. Watch. That's not the way we're supposed to be with each other, man. Nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people. Why are we bearing grudges? Again, I'm going to use the example. The weight of a glass of water has nothing to do with the weight of the water or the glass. But the weight of the glass of water is relative to the amount of time that you hold it. You hold it for a minute, it's not heavy. You hold it for a few hours, it starts to hurt your arm. The longer you hold it, the more it hurts. And so is a grudge. It only hurts the one that's holding it. Put the glass down. The guy you hate don't even hate you. He ain't even thinking about you. Then we start doing things like talebearing and slandering and sowing discord amongst brethren. And before you know it, it's just a breeding grounds for hatred on all sides. And it take a real humble man seeking after righteousness to say, you know what? I ain't gonna feed into that. That's okay. He can hate me all he want. I ain't gonna hate him back. I ain't telling you to turn the other cheek with the nations. I'm talking about with your brother, man. My brother. Let it go. Thou shalt surely rebuke him. If there's a problem, rebuke him. If he's violating the law, rebuke him. He ain't gotta like it, but you deliver your soul. And you also show him that there's love because you care, because correction, not from what you say or what I say, but what the books say. Correction is the greatest form of love that we could ever receive from God or man. And if we can't get that, we got a lot of reading to do, man. We got a lot of humbling to do. We got a lot of admitting to do. We got a lot of internal work, cleanup. And these words will change you, but you got to put them into practice. You got to adhere to them. And you can't use justifying excuses and complaining and blaming to get you through it. It don't go like that, man. I'm sorry. You're fighting a losing battle. We need to be able to say, I'm wrong. You know what? I'm probably always wrong at some point or another. Tamshi, verse 19.
Ye shall keep my statutes. Thou shalt not let thy cattle gender with a diverse kind. Thou shalt not sow thy field with mingled seed, neither shall a garment mingled of linen and woolen come upon thee.
Right. So when God made all things of linen and woolen come upon thee, he's an example, right? When God made all things, he made them perfect, each in their own individuality. In other words, he created everything for its own purpose, for his own will. And we're not supposed to be mixing two different kinds of cattle. We're not supposed to be mixing two different kinds of seeds. And we're not supposed to be mixing 2 different kinds of material to make a garment. God don't like nothing mixing that he made in their perfection already. Because why you mixing it to make something new? As if he didn't make everything good enough for us. Like you need to create something different now. We're not happy with what he gave us, which means we're not thankful. And if we're not thankful, then we're always going to try to add to it and take away. And like we're making improvements on God's creation. You can't make improvements on what is already made perfect. So however he made you, thank him. Like people that go and do surgery and want to put on the contacts, change their eye color and all that, what you're really saying is, God, you messed up. I think I should look this way. And half of it is just a stigma of what society says looks good. And we're being puppeteered to think that the way they want us to think. Free thinking people love themselves. That's what God is teaching us. You can't love your neighbor like yourself if you don't love yourself. So we don't need to modify nothing that God made. That's where it comes in this verse. Keep his statutes, not our statute, not man's statutes, not the ordinances of the people. Keep God's statutes. Don't change it. Leave it the way it is. Everything is perfect. He gave us laws for every one of our own benefit. And it's the best thing for you because he made you. By keeping them is how you love yourself. Not, I need a spa day, self-care. I'm going to make sure I drink my tea and put my feet in the foot massager, you know, and no, that's on the surface. Dig deep down inside and really love yourself by adhering to what God said is good for you. Love your spirit, love your soul. Because that's the only thing you're going to take with you to the grave. Neither shall there come a garment of mingled of 2 kinds of stuff mingled together. Lo yale aleka. Sha'atnez is the word. Kilaim. Sha'atnez is mixed fabrics. Kilaim is of different kinds. He said as of woolen and linen, right? But don't say that here. Garment of 2 kinds of mingled stuff is what it says. Now, it does say mingled of wool and linen. Another part he uses it for zemeru ufishtim, uses it in a different part of the book. But just so we know, there's a reason for that. Because our fathers were shepherds. And we were also farmers. So we grew flax and we raised cattle. And so we had wool from our sheep because we sheared our sheep once a year. And we made our clothes out of wool. And we also grew flax. And we got oil from the flax. And we grind up the meal. And we made bread with it from the seeds. Which is great fiber, by the way. And also you get omega-3s, 6s, and 9s. Right? That's a vegetarian source. God gave us everything that we needed. Which is for health. And maintaining a nation. Right? So... reason why I said don't mix or anything. Well, let me put it this way. Anything that goes against the laws of God is going to be detrimental instead of beneficial. So you might say, well, you mix the linen and the wool, then it'd be warmer and this and that, and it feel better or whatever it is. But you can't make an improvement to what God already made. So the wool, when we did the research, Brother Yehoshua did some research and found out that wool carries, and they did tests about like the atomic frequency, energy levels of atomic levels, frequencies of materials, right? And so organic cotton has a frequency at 100. The human body operates at a frequency on an atomic level of 100, right? And so I think if you were paying attention, you heard Chief Shama go into this a couple weeks ago. And wool carries an atomic frequency of 5,000, right? Linen carries atomic frequency of 5,000. Silk carries an atomic frequency of like 10 or 15%, right? Or 15, rather say, not percent, 15. And so is polyester, rayon, nylon, viscose. Those carry like frequencies of under 15 or under. Anything under 100 causes cellular decay. It causes your cells to decay. And this goes to show that God did not give us these things. Now, polyester is not a mixed fabric, neither is viscose or nylon or rayon, but they are made from rubber and not a material that God gave us for clothing, right? And so this is what explains why it's not good for you to wear it. It's not against the law if you wear 100% polyester, but it's not good for you. Now, we are in an age of time where, because of our sins, we're in an environment where we're no longer farmers. We no longer raise cattle. We no longer live in our own land, but we have to go buy our fruits and vegetables and our clothing and everything from the nations. And so this is why we suffer because of it. But the fact that we find out that when you, in this test, they mixed wool and linen together, and instead of it becoming 10,000 on the frequency level, which is what you would think would happen, they canceled each other out and became 0. Not 10, not 15, 0, which means that is the most rapid cellular decay that you could ever put on your body. That material that could cause the most rapid cellular decay would be linen and wool together. And you know why that makes perfect sense? Because God warned us not to mix wool and linen together. And that shows proof that God knows what's best for us. And when he gave us this perfect law, everything, not just your body, everything in existence will adhere to these laws, whether you like it or not, and will be affected by these laws, whether you like it or not. And the order of life that he set up is all in accordance and, what's the word? Congruence. It matches, it is agreeable with God's laws, everything that he made. Man is the only thing that's not agreeable. So that's why when the wool and the linen know, don't mix us together because we're going to cancel out. But man don't know. So man going to still mix them together. Man don't adhere to it. Man don't agree with God. Man is rebellious. Man has the ability to choose. And we are corruptible, so we choose the wrong thing. And the more you choose the wrong thing, the weaker you get towards doing what's right. So the harder you find it to change according to these laws, it's because we've been in a pattern of doing things according to our own hearts for so long. We've built up a crust, and the corruption have built a crust around the good that's in us. We all have good in us because we all have the breath of life from God, the nishmat chaim, the breath of lives in us that gives us life. But the corruption has created a crust around it because over time and time again of sinning. And now that opening, that breach that he warned Cain about, stays open, and sin continuously enters into us. And that has created this crust that we can't break through to bring the good out. So you know what you got to do? You got to force yourself to do what's right. You have to make yourself do it. Because there's one thing that I know that is the most powerful thing on earth short of God, and that's a made-up mind. Now, you're going to fail, but you got to stick with it, and you got to force yourself and keep forcing yourself and keep forcing yourself. And eventually, you start chipping away at that crust. And eventually, the good that's in you, it will start to shine. And it's going to take over. But you got to practice, and you got to get up and dust yourself off every single time. Wickedness is not determined by what you do or if you sinned or not, but what you do after the fact. This is part 1 to the lesson of love thy neighbor as thyself. I hope that everybody was inspired by the words of the Most High at the mouth of his prophet Moshe, and the words of wisdom at the writings of Melech Shlomo, King Solomon, son of God's beloved King David. And I hope that we will all turn from our evil ways. We will all humble ourselves, turn from our evil ways, and walk upright before the Most High our God. I bid you have the ancient tongue of our fathers. Shabbat Shalom Lechem. Anybody have any questions? Feel free to put it into the chat. If not, you don't want to ask in front of everybody, or you think of something else later, this is my email. I'm spelling it out instead of writing it out so that because YouTube doesn't allow for including your emails or a link in the chat. So there you see it, zakaryah.israel @gmail.com. Baruch Shemo. Yep, smooth the whole time. That's right, Governor. Baruch Shemo. Yep, there's always a solution. God wants this to get out. Look, I even wore the same garment and the same turban and everything from last week since it got cut off. Ain't nothing stopping this. It ain't stopping no show. You know what I'm saying? I did that on purpose so that we could show that was the makeup for the last teachings. You know, it's the same topic. I hope that everybody's inspired, and I hope that we'll all continue to push to walk upright before the Most High our God, to force ourselves to do it first, and then later it will grow.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.